Snow fell silently outside the glass towers of Sterling Enterprises as Alina Cross knelt on the marble floor, picking up scattered papers with trembling hands, while 200 employees watched her humiliation in silence. "You're fired," the voice above her said coldly. "Get out before security throws you out." No one in that room knew that within 24 hours, the man who said those words would be on his knees, begging for forgiveness. Before we continue this story, if you believe kindness should never be punished, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications too, because you will not want to miss how this story ends. Now, let's go back to where it all began. Alina Cross was 34 years old. She had worked at Sterling Enterprises for 11 years, starting as a junior cleaning staff member and slowly becoming the personal housekeeper and assistant to the Sterling family estate. She was quiet. She kept to herself. She never complained, even when the work was hard, even when the hours were long. What no one at Sterling Enterprises knew was that Alina had once been an accountant. A brilliant one. Before life broke her down, before she lost everything, she had a different name in a different world. But that story belonged to the past, and Alina had buried it deep, along with her pride. Damon Sterling was the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, a real estate and investment empire worth over $3 billion. He was sharp, disciplined, and respected in every boardroom he entered. But at home, in his personal life, he was distracted, overworked, and often blind to the people who kept his world running smoothly. He barely noticed Alina. To him, she was simply the maid. A presence in the background. Someone who made his coffee, cleaned his house, and never spoke unless spoken to. Then there was Vivienne Blackwood, Damon's fiancée. Beautiful, elegant, and utterly ruthless when no one important was watching. Vivienne came from old money, and she carried herself like royalty. She smiled sweetly in front of cameras and business partners, but behind closed doors, she treated the staff like they were beneath her. Vivienne especially despised Alina. She could not explain why. Perhaps it was the quiet dignity in the way Alina carried herself, even while scrubbing floors. Perhaps some people simply cannot stand kindness they cannot destroy. It started small. A misplaced comment here. A cruel joke there. "Alina, did you even finish school?" Vivienne would ask in front of guests, laughing lightly as if it were harmless fun. Alina would lower her eyes and say nothing. "I bet she's never even seen a real diamond," Vivienne told her friends once, twirling her engagement ring in front of Alina's face. Alina kept working. Kept her head down. Kept surviving. Damon saw none of this. He was buried in mergers, in board meetings, in building his empire higher and higher. He trusted Vivienne to manage the household staff, never realizing what that trust was costing someone else's dignity every single day. Weeks passed. The cruelty grew bolder. Vivienne began finding small excuses to blame Alina for things that weren't her fault. A missing earring, later found in Vivienne's own drawer. A stain on a dress, which Vivienne herself had caused. Each time, Alina apologized, even when she had done nothing wrong. Each time, something inside her chipped away just a little more. The other household staff noticed. They whispered among themselves. "Why does she stay?" one of the younger maids asked. An older housekeeper, who had known Alina for years, simply shook her head. "She has nowhere else to go. And she's too proud to explain why." No one asked further. No one knew the truth, that years ago, Alina had lost her husband, her job, and nearly her sanity, all within the same terrible year. Sterling Enterprises had given her a way to survive when nothing else could. So she stayed. She endured. She told herself it was temporary, even as the years quietly turned into over a decade. As Christmas approached, Sterling Enterprises prepared for its annual holiday gala, the biggest event of the year. Every employee, every executive, every important business partner would be there. Vivienne insisted on overseeing every detail personally, determined to make it the event of the season, the perfect showcase for her and Damon's engagement announcement. Alina was assigned extra duties leading up to the event, decorating the main hall, managing catering logistics, coordinating with vendors, on top of her usual responsibilities. She barely slept for days. Still, she never complained. She wanted, more than anything, for the event to go smoothly. Not for recognition. Just because it was the right thing to do. On the morning of Christmas Eve, disaster struck. The centerpiece crystal chandelier, ordered specifically for the gala, was damaged during delivery. Vivienne, already stressed and desperate to control the situation, immediately blamed Alina, even though Alina had nothing to do with the delivery at all. "You were supposed to supervise everything," Vivienne snapped in the hallway, her voice sharp enough to turn heads. "This is exactly the kind of incompetence I've had to deal with for years." Alina tried to explain calmly that the damage happened during transport, that she had documentation proving it wasn't her fault. Vivienne didn't want to hear it. She wanted someone to blame, and Alina, quiet and powerless, was the easiest target. That evening, the gala began. The ballroom sparkled with gold and white decorations, string lights, and a towering Christmas tree at the center. Executives, investors, and their families filled the hall in elegant suits and gowns. Alina, dressed in her simple staff uniform, moved quietly through the crowd, making sure everything ran smoothly, refilling drinks, checking on the catering staff, staying invisible as she always did. Then Damon arrived, and with him, disaster found its perfect moment. Vivienne, seeing an opportunity to appear in control in front of the entire company, decided this was the moment to make an example. She spotted Alina near the champagne table and raised her voice, loud enough for nearby guests to turn and stare. "This is the woman who nearly ruined tonight's event," Vivienne announced, pointing directly at Alina. 11 years of service, and this is the thanks we get? Incompetence and excuses." The room fell into uncomfortable silence. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Alina stood frozen, humiliation burning through her chest. She opened her mouth to explain, but Vivienne cut her off sharply. "Don't. Just don't." Then Vivienne turned toward Damon, who had just walked in, confused by the commotion. "Damon, darling, I think it's time we finally addressed the staff problem we've been having," she said sweetly, though her eyes were cold as ice. "This woman has been careless and disrespectful for weeks. I think she should be let go. Tonight." Damon, exhausted from work, distracted by the chaos of the event, and trusting Vivienne's judgment without question, made the worst decision of his life. "If Vivienne says there's a problem, then there's a problem," he said flatly, not even looking directly at Alina. "Pack your things. You're done here." The words landed like a physical blow. Alina felt every eye in the ballroom on her. She felt her hands begin to shake. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered. And then, as if to make the moment even crueler, a security guard approached to escort her out, right there, in front of everyone she had served faithfully for 11 years. As she walked toward the door, her small bag of belongings clutched tightly to her chest, Vivienne called after her, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Merry Christmas, Alina. Try not to burden anyone else with your incompetence." Laughter rippled through a small group of Vivienne's friends. Alina didn't turn back. She didn't cry, not there, not in front of them. She simply walked out into the cold December night, the ballroom doors closing behind her, sealing away 11 years of her life in a single humiliating moment. That night, alone in her small apartment, Alina finally allowed herself to break down. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, and cried for the first time in years. Not just for the job she had lost, but for the version of herself she had buried for so long, the woman she used to be before life crushed her spirit. Somewhere in that quiet apartment, something shifted inside her. A small, stubborn spark of the person she once was began to flicker back to life. The next morning, Christmas morning, Damon woke up with a strange unease in his chest. Something about the previous night didn't sit right with him. He found himself replaying the scene at the gala over and over, Alina's face, the way she hadn't argued, hadn't made excuses, had simply accepted her fate with quiet dignity. That wasn't the behavior of someone careless or dishonest. That was the behavior of someone who had been wronged. Driven by an instinct he couldn't quite explain, Damon called his head of operations and asked for the full delivery report on the chandelier incident. What he found stopped him cold. The damage had occurred during transport, clearly documented by the shipping company, hours before Alina had even been informed of the delivery. She had no responsibility in the matter at all. Someone had lied. And that someone was standing beside him at every important event for the past year. Damon dug deeper. He pulled personnel records, reviewed complaints filed against Alina over the past few months. Every single one led back to Vivienne. Fabricated stories. Twisted half-truths. A pattern of cruelty carefully hidden behind a polished, charming smile. His stomach turned. He had let the woman who had loyally served his family for over a decade be humiliated and fired, based entirely on lies from the woman he had planned to marry. But there was more. While reviewing old employee files out of a growing sense of guilt, Damon's assistant stumbled upon something unexpected buried in an old archived document. Years before joining Sterling Enterprises as household staff, Alina Cross had been a senior financial analyst at one of the city's top accounting firms, known for uncovering a massive fraud case that saved her former company millions of dollars. She had walked away from that career after personal tragedy struck her life, and quietly disappeared into obscurity, taking the first stable job she could find just to survive. The maid Damon had fired without a second thought was, in another life, one of the sharpest financial minds in the city. Something inside Damon broke and rebuilt itself at the same time. He picked up his phone with shaking hands and called Alina directly. She didn't answer. He called again. Still nothing. Desperate, he got into his car and drove straight to her apartment through the quiet Christmas morning streets, snow falling gently around him. When Alina opened her door and saw Damon standing there, she felt nothing but exhaustion. "Please," she said quietly. "I don't have the energy for more insults today." Damon shook his head, his voice breaking. "I'm not here to insult you. I'm here because I was wrong. Completely wrong." He told her everything he had discovered, the chandelier report, the pattern of lies, the years of quiet cruelty she had endured without ever fighting back. Alina stood silently in her doorway, tears welling in her eyes, not from sadness this time, but from the sheer relief of finally being seen. 2 days later, Damon called an emergency company-wide meeting. Every employee who had witnessed the humiliation at the Christmas gala was present, along with the entire executive board. Vivienne sat in the front row, confident, unaware of what was coming. Damon stood before the room, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "3 days ago, I fired one of the most loyal employees this company has ever had, based on a lie," he began. The room fell silent immediately. He laid out the evidence piece by piece, the shipping report proving Alina's innocence, the pattern of fabricated complaints, all traced directly back to Vivienne's own words and actions. Vivienne's confident expression shattered in real time as gasps spread through the room. "Damon, this is ridiculous," she said, standing abruptly. "You're going to believe a maid over me?" Damon looked at her, his expression cold for the first time in their entire relationship. "She's not just a maid, Vivienne. She never was. And more importantly, she's someone who told the truth, while you've spent months lying to my face." He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle over the room. "The engagement is over. And effective immediately, you have no further involvement with Sterling Enterprises." Whispers erupted through the crowd. Vivienne looked around desperately for support, but found only cold, judging stares. The image she had spent years carefully constructing crumbled in front of the entire company in a matter of minutes. She stormed out, her heels echoing sharply against the marble floor, the same floor where Alina had once knelt, humiliated, gathering scattered papers. Then Damon turned toward the door, where Alina now stood, dressed not in her uniform, but in a simple, elegant dress, her head held high. "Everyone deserves to know the truth," Damon said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "Alina Cross was not just wrongfully fired. She's a brilliant financial mind who once saved a company millions of dollars, and for over a decade, she's quietly kept this company's household and operations running with more integrity than most people in this room." He turned to her directly. "I'd like to offer you a permanent position, not as household staff, but as a senior financial advisor to Sterling Enterprises, if you'll accept it. A wave of applause slowly built across the room, employees rising to their feet, some with tears in their eyes, having witnessed the quiet dignity Alina always carried, finally being recognized. Alina stood there, overwhelmed, and simply nodded, unable to speak through the emotion rising in her throat. In the weeks that followed, Alina stepped into her new role with quiet confidence. Colleagues who once ignored her now sought her guidance. Her sharp financial insight, sharpened further by years of careful observation while working in the household, quickly proved invaluable to the company. She rebuilt her life, piece by piece, this time on her own terms, respected not because of pity, but because of merit. Vivienne, meanwhile, faced consequences far beyond losing her engagement. Word of her cruelty and dishonesty spread quickly through social circles. Business partnerships she once relied on quietly distanced themselves. The life she had built on charm and manipulation collapsed once the truth came to light. In the end, she lost everything she valued most: status, reputation, and respect. As for Damon, he learned a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. He began paying closer attention to the people around him, not just those in boardrooms, but everyone who kept his world running. He often said afterward that the biggest mistake of his life wasn't a business decision, but the moment he judged someone's worth by their uniform instead of their character. This story reminds us of something simple, yet easy to forget. Kindness is never a weakness, and dignity can survive even the harshest humiliation. True character is revealed not in moments of comfort, but in how we treat people who seem to have no power at all. And in the end, truth always finds its way to the light, no matter how long it takes. If this story moved you, if you believe loyalty and kindness deserve to be rewarded, give this video a like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories of justice, karma, and redemption. Turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.